We're going to start off today at the Grand Designs Magazine Theatre, sponsored by Kia, and we're going to be talking to the guys from High Guru about embracing indoor and outdoor harmony. So this will be fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a big round of applause for our panel. Come out. Hi, guys.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you guys. So bright and early. So thanks so much for joining. I'm Dara, founder and CEO of High Guru. So we're basically a platform of vetted home design and renovation experts, like the ones on the stage, available on demand over video call. So if you need advice, quick check, second opinion, they're there for you. And it's just £35 for a 30-minute video call. I started the business because I was going through a renovation myself, and it was one of the most stressful things I've ever been through. And I had a million questions to ask and no one to go to. So that's why I started the company. So with us are some brilliant experts we have on the platform. I'll let themselves introduce themselves before we dive right into the topic. So who wants to go first?
Ladies first.
Hello, I'm Yvonne. I'm a chartered landscape architect.
I'm Rick. I'm an architect. I've been in architecture, design, and construction for about 18 years. I'm on High Guru for everything that is about architecture, planning, building control, and technical design.
And I'm Brian Murphy. I'm a specification consultant, so I write recipes for buildings and landscapes occasionally.
Great. So what I love is we have a pretty diverse set of knowledge and talents here. So hopefully they can kind of debate different perspectives. I'm really looking forward to it. So I guess to kick things off, I'd love to hear from each of your perspectives what you think indoor-outdoor harmony is. What does it mean to you?
I guess for me, it should be one cohesive design. It shouldn't be two separate pieces that doesn't speak to each other. And when we design the outdoor space, we always need to think about the building itself and how we can extend the idea or the concept of the architecture into the outdoor space.
And how do you usually work with the interior side of things? Do you usually work together?
Not really, just because the design process doesn't really allow us to do that. But when we start the design process, I'll always think about the style of the building, whether it's contemporary or is it a bit more modern or is it Victorian style, things like that. So that gives me a starting point to think about what kind of style will complement the outdoor space and the access strategy, things like that.
Right, so you're always making sure to use that as a starting point, the building, to create your vision.
Yes.
Okay, great.
I believe that it's important to understand the character of the area we're working with, as well as understanding what is the client taste, because some people have specific tastes as much as for interiors than for outdoor design. It's important to create the continuity and having a sort of connection between spaces that can happen in different ways. It can be a journey of surprise, or it can be a journey of direct connection. Yeah, can you hear me better now? Yeah. So it can be a direct connection where you can have, like, for example, a picture window that leads the site from the indoor to a specific framed area of the outdoors to give you that sort of perspective continuity, or it could be something created with a more intricate game of directions and exploring, which can be acoustic, it can be visual, so there are different ways to approach it in a sense.
And is that something you often think about from the very beginning when you're looking at the overall space that you're working on?
Ideally, yes. It depends on the scale of the project, because how many of you are doing extensions or are thinking about doing extensions? 1, 2, 3. Do you count as 2 or do you count as 1? You count as 1, okay. 2. So 4. probably your first question is all about how much it's going to cost to build an extension, how big can it be, and these kind of things. But then I noticed that most of my clients tend to forget that after the extension works are done, then they have usually a garden that is not exactly very attractive, and then they realize that it comes with an additional cost to make it nice. So ideally, it's something that I would take into account at the beginning. You don't necessarily have to do the garden immediately. You have to take into account the season for planting and all these things that Yvonne will certainly be able to advise on. But if there is a bigger picture, then you can create that sort of interaction and dialogue between components from the beginning. Or maybe if you want to think about it in a second time, you can still do it in a second time, as long as you have sort of made yourself acquainted with the new design that you are living in, and then you start seeing what are the opportunities, where is the light coming from, which are the best days of the year to enjoy an area rather than another one. So gradually you can sort of develop your own preferences in terms of how to integrate the garden design somehow with your project.
This morning on the train, refreshing myself about what we're going to talk about today, I found a picture of a communal pond where it's a natural swimming pond with fish and humans, followed by private gardens, but there's no high fences. And so there's this kind of opportunity for discussion and sharing tips on planting and swapping this, that, and the other. Then there's the conservatory, which is the hot spot of the house, facing south. So you have this space you can move into and work in. So it becomes your indoor-outdoor workshop. It's where you do all your tinkering and you're assembling your car or your motorbike, ancient motorbike, whatever. And then there's the warm cave behind that. And the doors in between are very powerful performance, so that you heat this space up, then you open the doors, and then the heat flows in and warms up the building fabric, then you shut the doors and trap that heat in. And then you've got this lovely warm space that you can work all the way through the winter in comfortable conditions. And then if the weather's starting to thaw out, you can wander out into the garden. So that's where my harmony comes from.
So it's very well designed, actually. Everything flows together very well. And why do you think that's so important? Why do you think indoor-outdoor harmony is so important?
Well, outdoors is so important anyway, just to be out there and see it and enjoy it and listen to it and, soak it all up and get some vitamin D through your eyes and all this sort of stuff. You've got to do that. You've got to let nature come and visit you. And of course, the challenge is, if you have big, large sliding doors, you need big, large sliding screens to stop the bugs coming in. That gets expensive.
And how about you guys? Any reason why you think we should really prioritize this? I know it's very much about health and well-being as well. Do you have any ideas, for example, if we don't have a massive garden, are there ways that we can try to incorporate it for ourselves?
Usually, if there is a small outdoor space, it can be treated as an intimate sort of family area, almost like an additional room of the house, with the only difference that it's open to the sky. But if it's very like, for example, here we have some pictures. This sort of Mediterranean style courtyard. Now, this is probably bigger than what Dara was envisioning, but if you create that sort of intimate sense of continuity of spaces and functions, it can be an additional outdoor room that can add character to the house, to the experience, to the family life. it's a big advantage to have access to a private outdoor space. It's a luxury, I would say, that not everyone has. But luckily, most houses do in the UK. But we shouldn't forget how important it is.
Yeah.
So it's something that we need to cherish and celebrate a bit,
And what about you, Yvonne? You have tons of clients, I'm sure, who are always struggling with this.
Yeah, sometimes I think it also speaks to the background of the client as well and where they're from and things like that. Because some of them, they might want to put, let's say, a Buddha in the garden. So and they can also see it from within the building. So it provides a nice view, even when they are inside. And some of them, obviously, they want a Mediterranean style when they are from different places on Zen garden, things like that. So all of these different styles, it also provides different sort of styles to complement with the architecture as well.
Right, so I guess it's also very personal in terms of what how people want to join the two.
Yeah.
And so on the totally different topic, so I've seen like a massive trend in garden rooms recently. It seems like I'm kind of curious what you guys think about garden rooms and how you feel like it fits well with this indoor-outdoor harmony.
Garden rooms depends on your interpretation.
Right.
I think of sun spaces, which are there to trap the energy of the sun. They might have lots of plants in them, but they're a place where you can kind of get outside of the opaque building, get into the sunlight, not necessarily into the weather, protect yourself from the weather. The challenge is that there's, in the UK, 80% of the conservatories, I'm thinking glass houses here, are heated, and they're heated all year round. That is an enormous squandering of energy, consumption of carbon-based fuels. We've got to get away from that. We've got to let the sun do the heating. And in order for a conservatory to work well, you need solid, hard materials inside and maybe a brick wall at the back so that you've got something for the sun to be absorbed into, so that as the evening, the sun disappears, and then the heat from the building walls and the floors keep you warm and you don't have to turn the heating on. But you should never live in your conservatory all winter long. You retreat back to your warm cave. That's the sensible stuff, okay?
And what about some common mistakes you see people making when they are approaching mistakes? Common mistakes.
Common mistakes. Yeah.
That people make when they think about, because you mentioned a really good one, which was when people are thinking about extensions, they kind of do the inside first and then they forget about the outside.
I think that's one of the most common things. Is the garden stays forgotten until the homeowner realizes that it's brown. They open their fantastic new bifold doors and then they have like 5-6 meters of soil that has been probably destroyed by the main contractor with all the equipment and stuff. So it's not necessarily bad. It's something that has to be faced at some point later in time. In terms of mistakes, you ask common mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
In designing or in executing or in...
Throughout any part of the journey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We'll keep it broad.
Everything could go wrong, but nature will fix it.
Yeah. I guess it's not necessarily mistakes, but it's something you might want to consider, because some clients, they might want like a seamless transaction between, let's say, your kitchen to the garden, and they might want to apply the same material. But if you do that, you would need to make sure that material, that paver, is actually applicable for outdoor environment. Because for outdoor conditions, you need to take into consideration slip resistance and things like that. So it might not be necessarily usable if you want to use the same material, let's say.
So what's the best way of going about making sure that it has a continuous feel and design?
It's okay to use a different material. But I guess, let's say when we think about the access into the building, sometimes clients might want a leveled access, and we want to make sure that it's like everything is flush, and we want to think about, let's say, when you go out from your patio door, how does it look like, and how do you access the rest of the site, things like that. I guess that has to do with the user experience as well.
Yeah,
I think I've put a slide that could help with this topic.
Here.
I don't know, how does it work? Like this?
Yeah, one thing I'd talk about is
Yes.
topsoil. One of the most precious things on this planet is topsoil and whatever's in it. And there's all sorts of exciting stuff in it. And when you're scraping it back to make a clearing for building, don't stack it too high, you'll kill it. 1 meter maximum. Developers, housing developers, 2 and 3 meter high mountains of topsoil killed off. So when you do move in and the ground looks grey, it's grey because there's no life in it. So look after it, treat it as precious, never send it to landfill. Cover it with seeds, tarpaulins, or turf, or whatever you've got to keep it alive and allow moisture in it and keep the sun on it, keep it alive, and then put it back down and use it everywhere around your house. Done.
Yeah, of course, if you're
Great
working
tip.
on a garden project, you during the process you have some excavation works, you have some planting, some creating flower boxes, this kind of things where you can move material from one side to another. So you don't necessarily have to buy new soil. You can use what you have as long as you keep it alive, as Brian was saying.
Yeah.
No, it was interesting, Dara. I wanted to add something on this one. This is an example of what Yvonne was saying. So it's a project that I stole somewhere from the internet, some picture, I don't remember where, but it's a good example of good continuity from what's the outdoor space, the indoor space. The material that is used for the outdoor is the same finish, but obviously it's for outdoor use, so it's a thicker porcelain slate. These are super performing materials. You need to create the right substrate. If we do this kind of things in England, most likely there is a sewer at the back of your house. So you need to understand when you are excavating if there is any risk of damaging the sewer. It has to be, if there is a manhole, it has to be accessible. So you may want to take into account a bit of a bigger picture in that sense. But the main trick here is good cover of the outdoor space, a lot of light going through, and continuity of materials. So literally it's just like moving the windows from the actual end of the roof to the middle of the space. So it creates this sense of connection. It can be achieved in a number of different ways. Not everyone is going to install big sliding doors like that. Also, they could be, they're a bit expensive and they need space for operating. So you need to have the right dimensions to make it exactly like this. But the idea is to create this sense of interaction and continuity between materials. This is one way to go about it. Or, we can create like separate, intimate areas, as we were saying before, where you can transfer a specific character to make it yours. So a little corner, a little nook in the garden that can have some outdoor furniture, more or less rustic or expensive, or whatever the style you want to create. I don't know if Yvonne wants to add something on this.
Yeah, I guess lighting can be quite important as well to sort of complement the design. So when we think about all these sort of different styles, we can also think about, let's say, if you want to light up the garden, you want to make sure it's not affecting the lights in the interior as well. So that's something you might want to consider.
One other thing I'd like to mention here is about durability of the materials in the landscape furniture. The last thing you want is to buy something that in 5 years' time is in the bin. So when you buy your stuff, when you buy your hardwood furniture, buy the oils as well that you need to maintain them and keep them looking good and making sure that you continue to love them and not allow them to be thrown away. And it might be probably appropriate to use light-coloured greys and whites because they're less likely to look bad when they start fading.
What kinds of materials would you recommend that we look out for?
Well, any durable hardwood is probably going to be good.
Okay.
Ideally, it's a UK-grown hardwood rather than imported from the rest of the world. And then with the right oils, right polishes or whatever it might be, but don't look for a stain to try and maintain the natural colour of the material, except that it's going to fade to a silver grey, and love the silver greyness. Don't go, trying to keep it looking like that. Greenwich Millennium Village, we decided to put a coating on Western Red Cedar weatherboarding, which meant we had to do that every 5 years for the rest of the life of the building. It's not sensible.
So I'm going to ask a kind of technical question now. So it's about regulations. So when we are thinking about what we want to do outdoors, what are some things we need to be aware of? Yes, Brian.
So the building regs says that if you have a conservatory on the side of your house, you have to have doors and windows between it and the house. Most people don't want that. They want it all open plan. But you should have them and open them and close them in the winter and close them in the evening and catch all that heat. And these days building inspectors don't turn up anymore, so you could build it without those doors and nobody would know. But they save an enormous amount of energy. If you're heating your conservatory or heating your house and you've got doors wide open, squandering energy and cost, and we can't afford to do that anymore. Yeah.
Well, technically, if a conservatory is connected to the house directly without windows and doors, it counts as an extension from a building reg perspective.
And so
the inspector would say, no, if there is not an external door, so if you put a lightweight internal door, it doesn't count as a conservatory. It's considered an extension because there is thermal continuity between the space, as you know. Of course.
And then if all of your conservatory is 100% glazed, that's an enormous amount of energy lost through glass.
Basically, all the heat goes away from that point.
So you have a choice.
Or all the heat during summer
comes in
from there. So,
and that can be as problematic.
Yeah.
So then what is the definition of a conservatory?
A conservatory is a lightweight structure that is attached to the house, but it's separated from the envelope of the house.
Okay.
So the wall, the original wall of the house is there. There are fenestration elements. Fenestration is an architect word, but windows and doors now separate the two environments. The house has to behave as a house, has to follow the building regulation, be energetically performing in a certain way. The conservatory is a greenhouse, so you can enjoy it as a filter space that it's supposed to work as a greenhouse. It's not.
Right.
It can be an enjoyable space where you can spend some time, have breakfast, whatever it is, but it should be separated with a proper external door. It has to. The door has to be performing in terms of insulation, as well as the front door. Otherwise, that becomes just a heat drain.
Right. Okay.
It's like building reg stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about you, Yvonne? In terms of regulations, are there things we need to consider when we get started?
Yeah, so people, when they do works within the garden, they probably think they wouldn't need much they probably think they wouldn't need a planning permission, but they will need to consider the permeability of the space. So if they would decide to pave the entire garden, if your garden is big enough, you might actually need a planning permission to do that. So you will need to probably double check how big of a space you are looking to pave and whether that is a permeable paver or is it impermeable.
Okay, that's a great tip.
Thank you, Yvonne. Actually, yes, if you are planning to do some decking, if the deck is higher than a certain amount, you need to get planning approval. If you are planning to do your front garden because you want to turn it into a driveway or park your car there or similar works, you should consider whether you are in conservation area. Of course, if it's a listed building, that's a different chapter. Now, most of the councils are demanding for permeable materials. It's important to think of your house and your entire plot as something that doesn't impact the water management from a sewer perspective. So whenever there is, especially with the heavy rains that we are seeing recently, the more the house is absorbing the rainwater or delaying the transmission of the rainwater into a sewer, the better it is for the entire system. So the more houses behave in the right way, the less floods we have.
And one other thing that's been prompted by this discussion is artificial grass. Don't do it. Never do it. They require chemistry to keep them in a healthy state, or your children who are kind of playing on it are going to be picking up all kinds of bugs and whatever else. But it's seen as a kind of permeable solution, but it isn't, because usually it's laid on a concrete base. So, and the permeability is, primarily about making sure that we permit the rainwater to get into the land, to top up the water table, and not go straight to the drains and overflow. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the tips and the great advice. We have maybe 1 minute for questions, if anyone has any questions for the experts on the stage.
Just given the preponderance of sort of Victorian houses in sort of urban conurbations, do you have any specific hints for people who are renovating a Victorian type house but want to also try and create some continuity between the old Victorian house and the relatively limited garden space that some of these types of constructions have had?
I'm conscious of the fact that if you're in a terrace, you probably haven't got a route for your bins from the back to the front. So you end up having to do something at the front to incorporate your internet deliveries, your bikes, your bins, and somehow you've got to design that and get it all done around and under the window. So that's quite a challenge, but I've always had it in my mind that I want to design that thing, and I haven't had the opportunity to do it.
We should connect at our stand.
Well,
it
depends a lot on the spaces that you have. How big is the front garden? What sort of proportions are in the rear garden? How is the sun arriving or insisting on the landscape? Can you create some sort of focal point in the garden that you can enjoy from indoor? So can you create some sort of perspective? Would you consider to keep the Victorian style throughout, or would you like to play with contrast? So do you want a Victorian exterior and a contemporary interior? Do you want to mix and match? Is there some elements of the inside that we can reuse outside, like for example, lighting items that you can find in indoor and outdoor version, so you can have like similar lamps in and out, for example, to create this sort of connection. It's like little hints here and there that can help you put the pieces together.
I guess one thing you might experience might be overlooking. So you might then want to consider, apart from these features, you might also want to consider the vertical space. So instead of thinking it from as a in a plan view. You might also think about it how it looks like in 3D. So it can be, you can use elements like trees or screens or even like raised plant and things like that to create different like vertical spaces within the garden to sort of deal with an overlooking issues, I guess.